Hey everybody, this is Grant. Welcome to another episode of ClickAI Radio. In this episode, I have the opportunity to discuss with the infamous Blake Nubar on how to get a grip on your business numbers.
Welcome to ClickAI Radio, where you'll learn the secrets to transforming your small to medium business. Grant has been helping businesses transform using technology for over 30 years. Advanced technologies like artificial intelligence have been available only to large companies and advanced technical teams. Grant will discuss how you can use to leverage AI and other technologies to grow your small to medium business. As a gift, Grant is offering his ebook, AI for Sales Growth, at clickairadio.com. Now, here's your host and biz tech geek, Grant Larsen.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of ClickAI Radio. This is Grant Larsen. I cannot tell you how excited I am today to have a visitor here with me, someone that I've been dying to interview for a long time. I have really admired this man and what he's done. Blake Nubar. Everybody say hey to Blake.
Grant, I appreciate you having me here, man. It's a pleasure. I'm ready to have some fun, and thanks for having me on the podcast.
Thanks for taking the time to do this. You know, I've chased you for some time, right? Just keep trying to track you down wherever you are on the planet, right? Trying to get a moment of your time, but thanks so much for doing that. In fact, I was remembering the first time that I met you, I happened to actually be sitting right next to you, right? Yeah. And it was at a Funnel Hacking Live.
It was.
I think it might have been the first one that I ever went to. And I'm sitting next to you and we were just chatting for a minute. And then you were so humble, all of a sudden they're like, Blake Nubar, please come up to the front. And they call you up. I'm like, what the heck? You had won this award for everything you'd done with your business. How cool was that?
Yeah, it was wild. That award, the growth on that thing was insane, actually. That was, the product on that was really cool. And yeah, I remember sitting next to you specifically and I was like, wait, are you Steve's dad? And you're like, yeah, I'm Steve's dad. I'm like, man, he talks about you all the time, like in such an awesome way. It's finally nice to meet you. So yeah, no, collecting it was my first time walking across stage, getting the 2 Comma Club award. And that was done with an online business that it was called the B&B Formula. I was working with a guy named Brian Page on that. We kind of started that thing from ground zero type thing. Brian had a course out really, but wasn't making sales, didn't know what a funnel was, all that good stuff. And we kind of like teamed up, and we found each other through this thing. We started building this thing out. And, next thing you know, by implementing funnels and getting the right traffic sources in place, we did $1 million in 43 days with that offer. And we were there at that Funnel Hacking Live collecting that award. That was actually here in Orlando, Florida, I believe, which is funny enough because it's back here again this year in 2021, which should be exciting. So yeah, it was an exhilarating experience. A lot of crazy stuff happened, but all in all, yeah, crazy to like help grow a business like that.
I think about how you got started. I've heard a little bit of your origin story, but could you just take a moment to talk about how did you get started into this?
Yeah. So my whole online journey and my funnel journey is different. My funnel journey is probably more applicable for this. So I was working in the 9-to-5. I was working in a fitness company and we were working on building out this certification program for people that wanted to become personal trainers. If you want to become a personal trainer, you had to pass this exam. It's just like a standardized thing that you have to do. I don't know if it varies from state to state. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but we were building out this certification and we wanted to like really go all in on this thing. So we like really transformed how a training program should be. And we finished this thing. Like it was crazy. We worked like 9 months on this thing. It was a ton of time, but it was awesome. It had like a mobile app. It was this book. It was an online program. It had like all 360 views. It was an amazing product. And we go and I hand it over to the marketing department and I'm like, hey guys, like we're ready to rock and roll and start selling this thing. And I almost like hand over the torch and they just couldn't sell it. Like nothing was moving. And I just remember getting frustrated because I'm like, hey, like, why is this not working? Like, I thought that's your job. You're supposed to like market this stuff now. And they're like driving traffic to like a website, just like nothing was working. And I remember I went home one night and I was like frustrated, of course. And I'm sitting there, it's like 3 a.m. I'm staring at my ceiling fan and I had my laptop on my bed. So I just remember pulling it open and looking through it. And I see this ad come up, and I just remember the ad. It just said weird marketing experiments to increase traffic conversions and sales online. I'll never forget like the saying of it. And it's this crazy guy on it. His name was Russell Brunson. I had no idea who he was. And he was just like full of energy. So I click on this ad, and next thing I know, I land in a sales funnel. I didn't know I was in a funnel. I thought I was on a website, but lo and behold, I was in a sales funnel. And it's basically Russell just being like, you want to grow a business online, you want to start a business, you need a funnel, you need a funnel. And he's like going through all these different types of funnels. And I remember I was like so intrigued by it. And it was like a 90-minute presentation, and I was so captivated. I remember I watched it again. I watched it twice. So I watched this thing twice. It's like 6 a.m. I go straight into the office. I start sketching out a funnel on the board, and the marketing department's like, what are you doing, man? I'm like, I know how we're going to sell this. We're going to use a sales funnel. And they're like, what's a sales funnel? And I'm like, I don't really know yet, but this guy Russell talks about it. And I think this is how we can sell this thing. So I start sketching this thing out. I call up one of our celebrity trainers who was like the poster child of this brand new certification. I'm like, hey, so-and-so, we need a webinar. Like I bought the perfect webinar stuff. I sent it over to him. He like records this webinar. He sends it back like a week later. I build my first funnel out ever inside of ClickFunnels. I put this thing in, and I go to the marketing department. I say, hey, all right, guys, instead of like what you were doing, just drive traffic, like do what you do, but just send them to this thing here. And they're like, all right. So they send people there. People start opting in. People start watching this thing. And right when we go deliver the offer, no one buys. Like not a single person purchased this thing. Webinar ends. We're done. I go outside. I'm like cursing to myself. I'm like, oh, another failed idea. And I remember I had like one more last like lackluster hope of trying to get this thing to work. And I walked back inside, and I just went to my computer and I clicked on the refresh button, and we made our first sale for like, it was like $797, like $800. And I went nuts. And it's like, this Russell stuff works, right? Funnels work. And I walked in the next day and I quit, and I set out on this journey for the next year of trying to understand how, basically the science of selling stuff online, like funnels and offers and messaging and all that good stuff. And the rest is history.
One sale. That's amazing.
That's it. There's I think that's one thing I think a lot of us will relate to. And if you haven't related to it yet, if some people are watching and listening, they haven't. The one thing I think a lot of people will tell you is that when you make your first ever sale online, whether it's $5 or $500, there's this feeling that happens where you're just like, there's no turning back. I want more of this experience again and again and again.
Yeah. I love that. So your secret sauce as a business owner, it sounds like it's a combination of things. One, you stuck with this clearly, right? And it took lots of tries to do it. But I've watched you build from that, because I've seen some of the things you've created since then, which is just incredible. I think you've really been perfecting the art of the product launch. Can you talk about that for a moment?
Yeah. So anytime you have a really creative idea, right? I'm never an advocate anymore. I used to be, right, of building it out first and then launching it. And we've kind of flipped that on its head now. It's more like launch it first and then build it out, because a lot of things that prohibit entrepreneurs from moving forward, that stop them in their tracks, is they think they have to go build out these products and services first. And it's really difficult, right? There's a lot of friction in that. And it's like a recipe to fail and quit and give up and not want to do it again. So I'm more of a fan of see if you can go sell the idea that you have first, and then go spend the time building it out. So anytime we have an idea, what we like to do is really go really hard in the paint when it comes to launching, because launching is definitely, it's the way to prove your concept. It's the way that it gives you the short-term capital to inject into building the process and fulfilling on it. And even even gives you the capital you need to put into evergreen strategies like paid media and things like that. So we're just like, what we do really well here, my business partner and I, is that when it comes to a new idea, we really like to launch hard and aggressively. Like we don't just like to send an email. We don't like to just make a Facebook post or a couple ads, let's say. We like to be the loudest people in the room, where by the end of it, I'm hoping people look at me and they're like, man, that Blake Nubar dude, he's super annoying. Because then I knew we did a good enough job, because you couldn't escape us during that launch. So launching is one of those things where it's like, you got to become a master of it. Like you have to know how to do it, but you never want to stay in it. It's like learn how to launch and then learn how to move that stuff to the evergreen model, where it just keeps producing for your business day in and day out. So launching it's something you have like I said, you have to learn it. You have to become really good at it. And there's so many different types of launches you could do. Honestly, it's like follow one of the frameworks and put your idea into that framework and then just see how it does and see if the market's willing to judge and pull out their credit cards to pay you for it.
Are there certain social media platforms that you tend to focus on for your launches?
Yeah. So I'm a fan of Facebook. I like have this love-hate relationship with Facebook because it's like,
yeah,
as much as great of a place it is, it's like you have very little control as an advertiser. So Facebook's a really good spot. We enjoy. I think our biggest launch we've ever done was only by utilizing Facebook, which is crazy, right? It's just because Facebook to me is the hub. Like if you're on social media, you have Facebook on your phone or you use Facebook. You might have the other ones too. You might have like TikTok and Instagram and all the other ones, but Facebook is definitely the core. So I'm like, okay, let's focus on Facebook, which a reason behind that was we didn't want to get overwhelmed. I didn't want to like every additional platform you have to like think of too. It's just more stuff you have to create. It's different type of content you have to create because the platforms have different ways of posting and stuff. So we're just like, let's do Facebook. That's our favorite. But now as we've expanded the business and we've grown, we really focus on Facebook and Instagram. Those are kind of the two big honey holes, I would say, when it comes to it. We do email marketing and things like that, but it's really Facebook and Instagram because like I said, that's where everyone's on Facebook. I mean, and you take it literal, take it figuratively, the world's on Facebook. So what better platform to use than the one where everyone's kind of congregating?
Okay, that's awesome. So you know where you're going to find your people. So you grew this business and you've become expert at launches and you got to a certain point in your business. There was some time or place or condition you got into, Blake, where it led you to reach out and try to track down someone like myself. What were those conditions?
Yeah, so I remember, the business was growing. We were doing really big revenue numbers. And I remember when I was working with Brian, right, previously, I remember he had a consultant that was really advocate about understanding your data. And I didn't get it at first. I'm just like, what does any of this stuff mean? And as you really start to see when your business grows, if you don't have a grip on the numbers, you're kind of in trouble. And I remember we were getting to a point where our revenues were, high six figures every month. And I'm just over here. And I remember, I think I reached out to, I don't know if I reached out to Steve or Steve reached out to me, but I remember one instance happened in regards to conversations like, you need to talk to my dad. And I'm like, he knows this stuff. And Steve's like, it's what he does. And I'm like, okay, done deal. And the reason I reached out to you is because I realized that in order for your business to have a grip on it, to have a pulse on what it's doing, to scale it, right, with predictability, you really have to understand these numbers, and especially understanding numbers in a way where you can make really educated decisions based on that data. See, most entrepreneurs, when you're first getting started, you let your intuition guide your decisions. That's great. Like you have a gut reaction, like, ooh, this is a cool idea. Let's go launch it. But as that thing works, you need to use less intuition and more data to kind of guide where you want to go. Now, if you want to develop new products, sure, let your intuition run wild, right? But when you want to make really educated decisions on growing your company and what different verticals to go after, what different traffic sources, it should no longer be this game of guessing, right? Which a lot of entrepreneurs start making the mistake of. It's like, I touched one thing, it turned to gold. We think we can touch some more, it turns to gold. And it usually always backfires. It has to be the data. So I started thinking, okay, I don't want to make that same mistake where it's like, you think you're the end all be all and everything you're going to do is going to be magical. It's not. Who can I contact that knows data? Because I'm staring at this stuff and it's like a foreign language. I'm like looking at like, I don't even know, but I'm just staring at these and I'm like, this is way too much data here. And like, no one had a really easy way of organizing it. So it led me to contacting you. And that's kind of where things began.
Did it freak you out at first? And I'm like, oh yeah, we're going to do some AI on this. That just sound weird to you?
Yeah, I was just like, I've heard of AI before and like my geeky brain can like understand it to an extent, but I'm like, I have no idea what you're even talking about, Grant. Just do your magic because this sounds crazy to me still.
All right. So it's important to you to understand your business numbers, like you said, so that you can figure out some predictability. It helps you influence some of your planning or your next.
Yeah, you got like, if you don't know your numbers in your business, right? You can start a successful business and grow it to an extent flying blind. Like you can do that. You could, you can get a little lucky. You can have something that's pretty stable, but if you really want to grow your business and you're wondering why you're capping out and you're like, everything you're trying is not working, there's a good chance you have no idea what your numbers are, right? So if you really, I don't know another way to scale a company than by really understanding your data, because when you understand your data, you know what's converting, what's working, what's not, and you can focus more energy on the things that are working and put more money behind those, hence scaling those, and like kind of divesting out of things that aren't working so well. And the only way to do that is to really have a grip over the data inside of your business, which honestly is probably the last thing entrepreneurs do, right? Because it's just so overwhelming. It's like the one thing you want to avoid, but I can't express, at least in the last few months, how much I like realized how important it really is to having a grip on it and what it can do for your business. It's the difference maker in your business.
Okay, that's awesome. So when you got started working with us, how much did you have to know about AI? Right? Were we shoving it down your throat? We're like, hey, learn logistic regression. Come on, Blake.
Grant, I had no idea of anything you had. Like, I knew nothing going into it, and I still didn't have to know that much, because working with you, you were able to articulate the data in a way my kindergarten brain could understand, with pictures and awesome things like that. So going into it, no, I knew absolutely nothing. I didn't have to know anything, which was great, because you knew exactly how that data worked. You knew how to show me, and you basically just were literal. You're like, this is what this means. I'm like, I understand that. Instead of me trying to figure out what to do or the guesses, it literally told me what on this day or this time or after a holiday or before a holiday or during this season or during this quarter, this is what you should do and not do. I was like, I can understand that. So it was simple.
So let me ask you about that in terms of ways to make something like this easier for a business owner. Now that you've gone through this experience, what would be some tips that you would share with others to help them in their journey going through this?
Yeah, just look, data is one of those things, again, I can't stress it enough anymore. And I don't think many people geek out on it. Like, the thing is, always have a grip on your business when it comes to the numbers, because then you can have the ability to have someone like Grant come in and help you and show you on what to do with those numbers, right? Having those numbers is great. You might tell me all day, I know my conversions in my business, and I know my opt-in rate, and I know this. Grant's the person that can tell you what that really means and what to do with it. And that's the difference, because it's one thing knowing about the numbers. The next is being able to take action on what that data means. And if you look at most things, right, there's every software on this planet will tell you numbers, right? Here's your conversion rate. Here's your opt-in rate. Here's what won the split test. But there's another layer after that. And that was what I was really impressed working with you, is that you were the second layer. You were the team that came in and was like, hey, this is what this means. That's great. But this is what it means to do with it. So I would advise anyone that's, whether you're just getting going or you're looking to grow your business, start to get a little grip on your numbers, because then you're able to, work with someone as amazing as Grant to help you really scale those numbers by making those decisions.
Blake, you have been more than generous with your time with us today. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for doing this. Any final tips or comments to people who are starting to grow their business?
Yeah. So starting to grow your business, always make sure, I'll start from the beginning. You're going to solve a big problem, right? Find a big problem. If you find out that you're capping a lot, right, there could be a lot of reasons. Like I said, data could be one of them, but just remember, like, solve really big problems, right? Because then it's going to give you room to grow. And as you start growing, get a real grip on those numbers, because seriously, there's no other way to scale. You can't scale a business without that predictability. And having that predictability is going to give you the chance to grow your business on a whole new level. Again, understanding what those is and working with someone like Grant or this AI technology that's absolutely amazing, right? It tells you exactly what to do in order to make those decisions. So no longer do you have to guess anymore. I mean, we've been guessing our whole lives as marketers with split testing and things like that. It's amazing to know that you can go into situations, right, where the data this is how it works, and these are the ways you need to react based on that, on all that information. So that's my final words. I know it's more like this is the geek mind going, but solve big problems, get a grip on your numbers, and then find a way to take those numbers and use them to make those decisions to grow your business on a whole new level.
Hey, thanks again, Blake, for joining us. And thanks everyone for listening in. Until next time, get a grip on your numbers.
Thank you for joining Grant on ClickAI Radio. Don't forget to subscribe and leave feedback. And remember to download your free ebook. Visit clickairadio.com now.